We're about to now. We Oh no, apparently we
We're
are
on.
synced. That was quick.
Mhm.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So we are here in the hot seat, and I'm so excited to announce our guest. This is Karen O'Neill. I keep wanting to say
And I'm so
O'Neilly. Here we
excited
go.
to announce our guest. This is Karen O'Neill.
Sorry, this happens every time,
I
and it drives me nuts. I think they need to fix this.
keep wanting to say O'Neilly. And I'm so excited to announce our guest.
Why
This is
can I
Karen
not turn off the
O'Neill.
volume?
This happens every time.
There we go. Um, so we have a very interesting topic to talk about today that you brought to light for me. And, I think it needs to be talked about because stuff like this is often silenced or nobody's talking about it. And it could potentially change the lives of so many people. So, before we get into that nitty gritty, Karen, let's introduce you and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on
Oh,
here. I really look forward to this since we were texting last week. So I'm going to talk about addiction, and I'm going to talk about plant medicine that's not a cure. It is an addiction interrupter. So for 30, 60, 90 days, cravings, physical cravings, withdrawals go away. And I'm guessing none of you have ever heard of this. And I'm also guessing that all of you know and love someone and a bunch of someones that have one kind or another. My particular addiction was bulimia, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is the addiction that people don't talk about because it involves gluttony, deliberately stuffing yourself to numb your feelings and make yourself feel better and your emotions down. So whatever it is you're feeling, honestly, sometimes you could be feeling happy. It's like, oh yeah, no, this is too much. I can't be happy either. And you push it down with food, and then you deliberately purge. So these are two things society really judges you on, gluttony. And, we get messages from the media all the time, what we're supposed to look like, especially if we're women. And then this happens to women like myself that have had trauma in the past. And so we put on this perfect front, which is like, oh, look, I got my makeup on and I'm perfectly dressed, and hey, my nails are done. And I want you to believe what I'm showing you, which is that I look good on the outside. So you will not know my secret shame on the inside. And I jumped into that a little sooner than I meant to. I think everyone watching this can relate. How we handle it, how we relate to it is very different. It's subjective. But for me, I was bulimic for 35 years, and on a bad day, it was every 2 hours, up to 10 times a day, and nobody knew. Nobody knew because I made sure they didn't.
wow. It, I know somebody struggling with it now, and it's a young girl, and her mom has told me that she is. And it breaks my heart. And I mean, I know sort of the situation as to what she has dealt with her whole life. So it explains sort of that emotional connection because every addiction can be linked to past trauma, past, any, well, any kind of trauma, really.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, I know what she's been through and the struggle that's like, and you kind of hit it right there, which kind of slaps you in the face because if you've never dealt with it, you don't know that you dealt with it for 35 years ongoing and nobody knew. Like that's how good you get at being able to put a smile and make it look like everything is fine. And this is what people need to
Hide the
understand about
evidence, hide
mental
the evidence, have a story to cover any possible question, because sooner or later, the people you're intimate or live with, something's off because the behavior is off sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it, like, purging, that does to the brain, the electrical level, the mood swings it causes. So, I mean, and that's just one thing. And if it's like, say, a addiction, and again, we all know and love people that struggle with this or with alcohol, it's affecting their behaviors because they're putting a substance into their body, and it becomes their life. It takes over their life, and they go from being sensitive people. I swear, every single addict is a sensitive, that like, oh God, the world is just too much. You know, this is hard and I need to numb. And they take on that whole characteristics. Absolutely, you know, absolutely they do. They have to, you know, in order to keep their supply going, to keep it going, so that they don't go without, so that they don't go into this wild animal panic mode, or in the case of go into full-on withdrawals, you know, physical illness. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big thing. It's all rooted, I believe, in trauma of one kind or another, or extreme sensitivity. A lot of people with mental illnesses drift toward addictions because, you know, the world, they can't handle the world and the world can't handle them when they're
Oh,
they don't feel mentality of America or on the table.
our connection isn't so great. Apparently we're frozen on Facebook too. Can you
Yeah, I'm
hear?
sorry. Hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, there. I couldn't hear what you just said.
Okay, there. Sorry.
It kind of sounded robotic and it cutting in and out. So you may want to repeat that.
I was just kind of closing the loop addiction and making a very general statement that addicts are sensitive people. Many of them have mental illnesses of one kind or another. They medicate, that they self-medicate with whatever, you know, it could be a behavior such as gambling, you know, or porn addiction or sex addiction, or it could be a substance such as alcohol or cocaine or opiates, or it could be food, as in my case, whether it's binge eating where you keep it in but you feel awful because you have all this unhealthy food, or in my case, binging and purging, like, yeah, no, I'm not going to keep this in. I'm going to, you know, in the case of bulimia.
Yeah, yeah. And actually just hearing you mention all of that is, I'm like thinking of every family member. And I don't have a lot of contact with most of my family. But I'm like, oh, yep, that explains that. Oh, yep, that explains that. And some were very outwardly so. Like my dad was an alcoholic, and my brother was an addict. Both have passed. And my brother, more specific, well, even my dad, they were both very sensitive people as well. You know, hearing you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense, because they were both very emotional people. And you know, seeing them
It's hard
go,
to approach them with compassion, though, especially when they're a family member, because you are sick of their shit. You're
yeah,
tired of their denial, their lying, their projecting, their blaming, it wasn't me, it was the one-armed man, you know. And it's like we all read from the same script, you know, we've all heard it. Any of us that have dealt with addicts, we've all heard this stuff. And so we bring them into a place like this. I'm speaking to you from Mexico for those listening that don't know, because the substance I work with is not legal in the United States, because it's classified the same as heroin or the same as meth. And what this is a very high vibration plant medicine from the rainforest of Africa. And it was used in the Bawiti tribe, and before them, the Pygmy tribe, for, there's no recorded history, for the millennia, for as long as there was dirt, we assume. And it's a shrub that grows to be about 7-8 feet tall max. And at its maturity, at about 10 years, you can sustainably harvest the roots and dry them out and shred them. And it's psychoactive. And it's the strongest psychoactive compound that we know of, probably the strongest thing that we know of, you know, in this world. What it does is that the natives would use it for coming of age ceremonies. And I'm guessing that the coming of age ceremony was mid-teens, kind of like we have bar mitzvahs and quinceaneras and things
yeah,
like that. And the whole village would gather and they would play this music, and it's an acquired taste music, but it has complicated binaural beats and polyrhythms that help the medicine work better in the brain. So what it does is it goes through every area of the brain and defrags it and resets it. So if you have PTSD or trauma, boom. And let me tell you, the first time I did this medicine, I did it twice. Yeah, I did it twice because the first time I wasn't completely ready to give up the addiction. I really wanted it to be a magic pill. Just please take it all away. And told that it wasn't, I know, but I wasn't really ready. And I was also in a toxic relationship, which made it harder for me to make the changes I needed to do because I was too worried about how he was judging me and, all of the things that go, into a toxic relationship. And he didn't understand addiction at all. He was one of those lucky people that just doesn't have that addictive bone.
Yeah. Oh no.
I smoke cigarettes, but I am for sure as a non-smoker, but I just know that about myself. Where I start, boom, it's all over. Anyway, I'm digressing. This plant medicine has it gets.
Can you go back and repeat because you froze and then we missed a chunk again?
Okay.
So,
So
go back.
this was used for coming in age ceremony.
Where we cut out was where you'd said you were in a bad relationship and you were afraid of judgment.
Right. So I did this treatment twice is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But this is not an addictive substance. Nobody would want to do this all the time. Trust me. But what it does is it just takes away the cravings.
Right. Now, Karen, Jazz here is mentioning
temporarily, not.
It may be better reception if you turn your video off, which is unfortunate because we'd love to see you, but we may be able to hear you better because it's not it's not trying to.
Okay, is that better?
Oh yeah, that's way better.
Okay, cool. All right. So, hey, you did spell my name right. Thank you.
But you can see how it would be easy for me to add a Y, and I'm so used to spelling my own name.
Sure, sure.
So is it like ayahuasca?
It is and it isn't. So what makes this different is this has resetting properties of the brain. Ayahuasca is very good for dealing with trauma. Say you have blocked trauma. And I'm not saying that ibogaine and iboga is not. It's great for that too. It's just that ibogaine and iboga is very hardcore because it does a complete defrag of your brain, a complete reset. It's a dirty molecule and it goes through every area of the brain, resetting your taste back to like you are a child. So think about a 7-year-old child. They're gonna smell a glass of wine or a glass of whiskey and turn their head away. They are not going to be, inclined to smoke a cigarette, certainly not stick a needle in their arm and or suck on a meth pipe or a crack pipe, right? So it temporarily resets you to you're a child and you're actually reborn and you're also emotionally fragile for the first 30 days. So you think of how babies are startled by loud noises and very sensitive to voices and lights and sounds. A person can have that for up to 30 days with this medicine. So it's not something that generally should be the first thing someone tries. It's good to try something else first. And then when you've said, hey, look, man, I tried the 12-step, I tried the inpatient, I tried antidepressants, not that I'm recommending anybody go that route, don't. There's something, you can microdose psilocybin or microdose ayahuasca and have really, really good results for depression without psychoactive effects. But it just lifts that cloud and pushes you up to a higher space. So ayahuasca is great for emotional stuff, and you'll feel the effects of ayahuasca for a couple of days if you went into it with good intentions to really get something out of it. But with ibogaine, you're going to feel it for up to 30 days. And so what it does, it was discovered about 70 years ago by a student on the East Coast. He was 19 years old. He was in college and he was an opiate addict. And he was looking for something to get high one night and showed up at a chemist friend's house who handed him these pills out of his freezer, which was ibogaine, an extraction of this root bark that I was talking about earlier. So iboga is the root bark itself, where you actually take a lot more, but it's going to make you purge. And then you can do an extraction of it, which takes out some of the alkaloids, but you're less likely to be sick. And this is what's used more generally to treat addiction. So that's the difference for anybody listening. With this medicine now for 3 years at an ibogaine clinic and an aftercare center, they're two separate locations near each other. When someone is addicted to opiates, and ibogaine is mostly known for opiate addiction, they need to remain on opiates or they're going to go through withdrawals. They'll be very sick and uncomfortable. They won't be able to keep the medicine down that we give them, and it's fairly expensive. So we keep them on opiates for a day or two, just short acting pills, right? No needles allowed, nothing like that, but just to keep them comfortable. And then usually a day or two after they arrive and they've had their medical testing, we give them what is known as a flood dose, which is a very high dose of this medicine. And we give it to them just as their morphine or their oxy or whatever they're taking is wearing off, right about the time they would start to think about dosing again. And 9 times out of 10, it cuts their withdrawals. Boom, just gone.
Wow.
Just gone. So then they go through the experience itself, which usually involves some visions and, you know, and a buzzing in the head because this molecule is going through every area of the brain and just resetting it temporarily. So they come out the other side not craving opiates. Now they still have the mental craving, and that's where therapy and focus groups, doing fun things like horseback riding, doing yoga every day, getting discipline, getting a schedule, finding new activities that are sustainable activities, you know, that are healthy, high vibe activities to replace the void that was left by the cravings. And if they stay on for aftercare, which is really highly recommended, this becomes their new normal, right? You don't forget your life. You don't forget that, like, hey, when my wife is yelling at me, I want to go use. I mean, we're not going to forget that. What we need to learn how to do is how to have, you know, communicate better with everyone, how to have clear agreements, and how to know when something isn't working and create a new life, which oftentimes is the case. You know, oftentimes, as I was saying before, within my toxic relationship, I was never going to meet his approval because I wasn't being financially self-sufficient. I wasn't being motivated. I had bottomed out in my addiction to the point where that was all I really wanted to do, that and see my family and be a grandmother. And ironically now, 3 years later, I'm doing all of the things that he wanted me to do. I'm the world leader that's developed a protocol for eating disorders with this medicine. Nobody else out there is specializing in this. So I really want to give to a voice, especially, well, to all addicts, but especially to my own former addiction, which was bulimia, that there's help out there you might not have heard of and might not have considered. And it absolutely, I'm here to tell you, it works for bulimia if you are ready to give that behavior up.
Yeah. Well, and you're the walking billboard for it, because, you know, you just told us that you've had, or you've been dealing with bulimia for 35 years.
Yeah.
And so finding this saved you. And so you're really the best person to be talking about it, because whether somebody has been bulimic for a year or somebody's been bulimic for decades, you're walking proof that it can change your life.
Yeah, it stopped that. I was clean. The first time I did it, I was clean. That is free of the behavior for 6 weeks, which doesn't sound like much, but when you contrast that with the 32 years before that, okay, which, you know, it interfered with me being a mother. It interfered me doing work. It interfered with every single relationship. I've got 3 ex-husbands. Okay, not proud of it, but hey, you know, I was hard to be with. Any addict is hard to be with. And with the bulimia, because for the first 10 years, nobody knew. And after 10 years, I realized I really need to get help. So I spent the next 25 years trying everything, trying Prozac, trying therapy, trying inpatient in the hospital, trying 12-step groups, all of those things. I mean, it's not like I didn't try, and it's not like certain things didn't mitigate it and help it a little bit. So I could go down to like maybe binging and purging only twice a day for a couple of weeks. It's like, wow, that's good. But that's not where I wanted to be. I just wanted to be done. And I'm at the point now where I have to remind myself to eat. You know, food is medicine. And it was about, for me, co-creating a healthy relationship with food. So what I do with my clients, and I've only had several so far because I've only been focusing on this part of my work for the last year, because first I had to learn the ropes and the tricks of ibogaine and aftercare and how to, you know, I became a life coach. In the meantime, I'm a Being True to You coach, which is the only coaching program that focuses on psychedelic medicine as well as a transformational tool.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I kind of had to learn the craft and, you know, as well as clean the toilets and, you know, whatever else needed to be done. And the last year I've focused on developing my own protocol with my clients, and I learn a little bit from each one. Everybody is absolutely different. Some people don't feel like they've been reset. For me, it was instant. It was instant. And the very first thing I noticed was my PTSD from sexual trauma was just poof, gone. Just gone. And it has not returned. And that's partly because I'm careful as a single person. I'm careful what situation I put myself in when it comes to seeing men or dating men. You know, I really, you know, make better choices than I did in my 20s and 30s during these different times where I was single for a year here and there. But it just took away, the cravings. I had to do it again 2.5, 3 years later. And by then I'd added alcohol to the mix.
Wow.
So I was like, great, now I've put on 20 pounds and I'm, you know, fat, drunk, and bulimic. Wow, yay. So I didn't drink at all for several years. And being where I live and work, it's not like I can hide a bottle under the bed or, you know, or have, you know, wine in the refrigerator or anything. But the interesting thing is that the ibogaine takes away the cravings for alcohol too. So I was like that, you know, 7-year-old kid or a dog that turns its head away from alcohol for many years. And the only thing I would drink now, and it's very occasionally, is tequila. And it's like, hey, I live in Mexico, you know, but I didn't do that until last year.
Yeah.
You know, well, and again, it's something that I can do, you know, because that wasn't my big problem. If it was, then, you know, then I would have to just make the commitment to never touch it again. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't do that with food, right? Yeah. You can't do that with food. You have to have a healthy relationship with it. So with my clients, I'm with them throughout their treatment, you know, overseeing them. I help them prepare up front with doing some journaling exercises up front that help them get the most out of their medicine and really look at what all addictions they have, because all of us, you, me, everybody listening, we all have about 20, 40 pretty solid addictions, whether it's how we manage our emotions, or maybe it's our cell phones or TV or shopping or I don't know.
Gaming.
It can go the gamut, you know. See, so, you know, we look at all of those and we decide, okay, now we've got a good picture of it. We're going to decide which ones are primary and which ones are secondary, and which ones we want to remain abstinent from, meaning that we don't participate in that behavior or activity or substance, and then make a plan for giving that up. And then I'm with them through the treatment and then through the aftercare process too, because unlike the opiates around here, which we have in a safe, we can't lock up the kitchen, you know, so it's really about, and we don't want to deny people food either. You know, when they're hungry, they should eat.
Yeah.
So it's about co-creating a healthy relationship with food, which for most people is for the very first time.
Well, in any addiction, it's about, you know, it's about addressing the behaviors behind the addiction, which you and I had a bit of a conversation about with my father, because he managed to stop drinking, but the behaviors didn't change. And so, you know, he may not have been consuming alcohol, but he was just as destructive and just as, you know, harmful to himself. He just switched what he was consuming. So it wasn't alcohol. He turned to marijuana and food and all these other things. And so, my uncle very succinctly called him a dry alcoholic, which stuck with me because I thought, oh, that's kind of a really good way to describe him. So you're talking about this drug being able to help people, like you said, reprogram, so it becomes learning a new behavior, a new way of being, uh, so that that addiction doesn't transform to just another addiction.
Right. If there's a void, I mean, nature pours a vacuum, right? So as soon as there's a void, something's going to come in to fill it. So what we focus on is giving them their selection, and we ask them to participate in everything, but exposing them to a variety of things that they may already do or that they've never heard of and do. So this can include things like qigong, yoga, other sacred medicines when it's time, you
Right.
know, not immediately, but when it's time, we might offer psilocybin or ayahuasca, to keep doing the work. Because what the ibogaine does, it does the scrubbing and the resetting. And then what the program does is like, hey, here's a new way of being. And guess what? We want you to make your bed every day. And we want you to, keep your room clean and be an active community member. We want you to wash dishes once in a while, and certainly your own. We want you to be an active participant in our check-ins and in our recovery circles and in the different classes we have, whether it's assertiveness training or, ways to improve communication, ways to facilitate agreements.
Yeah.
So these are the healthy activities that come in to fill the void, going for nature walks, horseback riding, going to the beach for the day, and there's some hot springs here. So, we bring buckets and shovels, and, we sit in this hot springs, right there on the beach. So it's not just that. Also, it's about finding your tribe and your community. Because if a lot of people will just come down here to Mexico, especially because it's close to the United States. Baja, the peninsula is pretty easy to get to, and you don't need a passport. They'll do the treatment for 3 days at a clinic that, will do it for a lower amount of money, and they'll go home. And 30% of those people will be successful. And by successful, we measure that the way AA does. That means you're free of your drug of choice a year afterward. Okay, we're not talking about the rest of their life, but like a year is a good chunk of time to develop some healthy habits. So 30% of the people that just go get the medicine, go back home, 30% are successful. That number goes up to 50, 60, 70% of the time if people do some work ahead of time with a coach like myself or with their own therapist or whatever. This is what I'm going to do. And, and these are the results that I want from it. These are the areas that I need help with. And then come and do the medicine and then stay for a period of time to really cement those habits. The other part of the equation is, I was saying, how the person is born, the brain can be a little scrambled. So it's an idea to just back home, traffic, to work, to whatever, and try to do those things, because it can be traumatic, even though it's all known to do. It can be quite a while. The other medicines we've talked about, ayahuasca, in a very suggestive neuroplastic state with ayahuasca, but that goes away within a few days. And depending on if you do the work and the lessons, the things that were shown you,
Yeah.
or if you gain some insights, if you do personal work, expect your improvement. But with ibogaine, it sticks with you for about 30 days to help you fight off the cravings. And that means that you're kind of like an infant for about 30 days. And I use that term kind of loosely, but we have to be really careful our tone of voice we use around here and the way that we talk to people. And again, they're used to being treated very badly by their family, by all the people they've alienated because of their own behavior. So all of a sudden, they're being treated like a person, and we're hugging them and telling them we love them the first day.
Yeah.
Because and we help them with the self-love and the self-acceptance, because that's really at the root. That's the one thing that's at the root of any addiction. Someone that really loves themselves and has a healthy relationship with themselves could not possibly stick their finger down their throat and, purge out 5 pounds of food, or jam a needle into their vein,
Yeah.
and collapse their veins and then go to other parts of the body. You just can't do that if you're in a healthy space.
Right. We don't hurt ourselves if we are healthy.
Right. And the thing is, most of us aren't, the world isn't perfect. We've gotten far away from the tribal aspect of living. America, the United States, is very nuclear and very focused on commercialism and success. And like we were talking about before you went live, the pandemic really gave people an opportunity to look at things differently. All of a sudden, they had to be with their family. They didn't have a choice. All of a sudden, the kids couldn't go to parents couldn't go to work. Maybe they could work from home, but they had to go back to the base, have better family dynamics than we do. I've seen it overseas. I've seen it here in Mexico, where they have the same stressors. They have cell phones and traffic and jobs and bills to pay, but the family unit is tighter, and that means there's less likelihood of people falling into these self-harming behaviors or addictions.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I remember when
Did
I
I
was
lose you?
17. No, I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, you froze for a minute.
Okay. When I was 17, I lived in Italy, and it was probably the best thing I could have done for myself at that age. It really just opened my eyes to, a different way of living, a different part of the world. And one thing that I really loved is that, in Italy, when school was done and it was lunchtime, so we went to school from like 7 a.m. and until 12 or something like that. And then everybody went home, stores shut down, and people returned home. Lunch was the big meal of the day. But like it was across the board, at like
Yeah.
companies shut down because the value was on family. And so you spent that lunchtime, and we would spend 3 hours almost every day eating lunch, talking, and then it turned into tea and cookies. And so it was this really pivotal time for everybody to connect. And I remember thinking, why don't we do this in North America? Like this makes so much sense, and it's supported by businesses, it's supported by, everybody, because they all do it. And it just made such a difference in the family dynamic. And coming back to North America and what we do here, it's a rat race. It literally is go 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 go. And that feeling, or that mentality of capitalism and money at no cost, at all costs, sorry. And who suffers? Everybody. Right?
Everybody.
Stress, the feelings of neglect that children feel, and then parents who are oblivious and don't understand why their kids are dealing with anxiety. Well, because there's not that family connection, there's not that really important time. So like you and I had talked about prior to going live, the pandemic had to reset some of that for us. And I think some people took a step back and went, whoa, I can't go back to working those kinds of hours again. If I have the option of working from home, I'm going to do it, because I want to see my son's, baseball game, and I want to go and do swimming lessons with my kids, and whatever the case may be. But people are realizing that they're missing out on life because they're so focused on what they shouldn't be. And then no wonder we have such high rates of addiction and trauma and all these other things. because we don't put the emphasis on what really is important.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I see it every day here. And
yeah,
so it's about creating that for yourself. Many of us have dysfunctional family members together. So it's about finding your tribe. Who are people that love and support you versus who are the people to see you or want to sell you drugs again because you're back home now and you're a good client. So it's really about finding your tribe. And when I say tribe, we do tribal here in a couple of hours here. We're going to have an Aztec style sweat lodge, and it's shaped like a dome. And we enter, and the hot stones are brought in at 4 different times. And
oh, are you there? Ah, we lost her. Am I still live? I'm still live. Okay. So hopefully she will jump back in. She knew that her internet would be a little precarious, as it was, but she is in a very rural part of Mexico. Uh, oh, wait, is she back? Karen?
are you there? I apologize. It just went bye-bye. Can you hear me?
You know what? We knew it may happen. We talked about it. So I'm good at jumping in when things like that happen. No problem. The joys of modern technology. Can you hear us or us? Me? Karen?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You're cutting in and out.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, now I can hear you, I think.
Darn it. Okay. Yay, okay. I was going to jump on my phone here. Anyway, do you want me to try my phone? I apologize.
Don't apologize. It's all good. I mean, the fact that we're even doing this and we're in two different countries. Oh, you know what? You just have to go with the flow because sometimes technology works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's great when it does work, but it's a pain in the butt when it doesn't. So let's see if this is better. Here she's coming back. Hello, Karen. Can you hear me? Oh, I think I can hear you now.
Yes, here I am.
Oh,
Woot,
awesome.
woot.
I can hear you clearly. Amazing.
Let's try the video here. Does that video make it worse?
I can hear you, but the video picture is kind of delayed and not great. So
Okay, yeah, we'll skip it. Okay, anyway, I apologize. I don't know what happened there. My
it's all
laptop's
good.
pretty old.
You know what? Technology is great when it works. It's a pain in the butt when it doesn't.
No
And
kidding.
I keep thinking first world problems, really, if you think
Yes.
about it. We're so used to things being immediate that when they don't work, we have to have a bit of patience because, like we had said, we're talking in two different countries here. So the fact
Yes.
that we're even able to do this is quite miraculous, I think.
It is, isn't it? And we really need to focus on the positives. So I
Yeah.
was wondering to anybody listening, if I explain things well enough about ibogaine, how it works to reset, how you have a period of downtime to rebuild, the fact that it's illegal in the United States, thanks to the Nixon era draconian medicine laws, it's considered equal to meth, which is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions about what it is that I do? This is not what I thought I would be when I grew up.
Which is amazing, because obviously you were called to it and you were meant to find it for a reason, because now you can help other people, which I think all our experiences essentially are meant for us to be able to help people through similar or helping them through difficult times. I have a question for you, because talking about how it's not legalized in the US. I don't know what the laws here in Canada would be about it. I would imagine it would be similar.
There are a couple of clinics in Vancouver, BC, but I think they kind of have to be careful and fly a little. It's not illegal, but I don't know, but they're operating openly, and I don't really know. I should actually, they're my friends. I should write and ask them that very question.
It would be interesting. Let me try that again. It would be interesting to know, because, certainly letting people know where they can access this, if this is something that they think is needed for them or a loved one. I'd certainly love to help make that easier. Um, oh, we have a question here. What is the name of the drug you keep talking about? Can you say it again, Karen?
Yes, it's ibogaine, and it's spelled ibogaine.
Now, do you think that it hasn't been legalized because, well, let's face it, the pharmaceutical companies
Oh yeah, you
make
nailed
a
it.
lot of money
You
from.
nailed it. And what they're doing is they're trying to come up with a synthetic, version of it themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. And it'll be something you have to take every day. And they're going to take out the psychoactive compound. And I actually believe that that part is very important. Why screw up what nature already has here for us? So while I used to be outraged that ibogaine was illegal in the United States, now I'm actually quite frankly glad. I think we need, quite a few more years of people demanding natural medicines not be illegal. And we see that happening with cannabis. It's starting to happen with psilocybin in a couple of states, Oregon, my home state, California, Colorado. These things will improve in time, but there is a very spirit aspect to ibogaine. It's a male energy. It's the stern, loving grandfather that that gives you an ass kicking and says, "Hey, you really clearly screwed up here, and I'm going to show you what you did, and I'm going to help you not do it anymore. But you really can't do this anymore."
Yeah.
And it's like that. Whereas ayahuasca is thought of as a very female, loving presence.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, these have spirits, and I'm not saying that spirits cannot be created in a lab, depending on the people working in the lab, what their intentions are and where their energy is. That's very possible. LSD. Okay. I'm a fan, I'm a fan. And that's created in a lab, but along with other research chemicals too. Ketamine, very good for depression and for working with trauma and for seasonal depression, again, created in a lab. But I just don't see big pharmacy ever coming up with anything good for anybody, because they're all about making you needy, dependent, and bankrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, here's a bunch of side effects to go along with it. Whereas with these sacred medicines, and I don't call them drugs, I make a distinction between medicines and drugs. So, drugs I can, and many drugs are plant medicines too, cocaine, heroin, again, alcohol, all plant-based. But it's like, where's the vibration of it? Is it going to be a healthy thing for you or a harmful thing for you? So you have cannabis, which is in the middle. That can go either way, depending on the person, how they use it, what they're using, blah, blah, blah. You know, CBD, great stuff, right? Then below that, you have alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, alcohol. Did I say that already? All of that. And then on the plus side, you have above from cannabis, you have psilocybin, you have ayahuasca, peyote, ibogaine, mescaline. So, and these are high vibration things that put you in an altered state, in an altered realm temporarily to help you turbocharge so you can help yourself better.
Yeah.
And it's not about tripping balls, although you will. It's about what are your intentions going into it? What do you want to get out of it? And you may get something out of it completely different, because we have a saying here, you know, the medicine does what it wants and what you need. So, you know, you can't say, well, I want it to be just like last time. Yeah, it's going to be what it's going to be. So you just got to surrender, baby, you know, and let it take you where it's going to take you.
Yeah.
And having said all of that, I use these medicines very rarely because, number one, I need more downtime than most people, because I'm older than, like, I'm always 20 years older than the youngest person in the room. So at 61. So I don't do it very often, but when I do, I prepare and I make sure I have at least a day or two afterward to really just, you know, downtime and reflect.
Yeah. What makes me think, or what I think of when I think of this medication and ayahuasca and stuff like you said, that about the vibration of the plant. I've recently started researching grounding and our connection to nature, to the earth, and the
Right.
vibration, the healing vibration that we get just from being in nature. And something that I read recently, which makes a whole lot of sense. And when you think of these plant-based medicines, it also, it makes sense to me. Um, you know, hundreds of years ago, we spent our time with our hands in the soil. We were
Absolutely.
constantly,
We walked around barefoot. We, you know, we harvested, grew and harvested our own plants. We, you know, we didn't have the EMFs that we have from the technology we have today. And actually walking around barefoot or laying down on the ground is a great way to just, you know, give it back to the earth, man. The earth can handle it a whole lot better than a little old me can.
yeah,
Right?
when I coach people, I talk about grounding and saying, you know what, take 15 minutes a day and go and stand barefoot in the grass. Like, there is something beneficial to tree hugging, even though it sounds very, you know,
It's
hippie.
been poo-pooed. Yes, it's been
Yeah.
poo-pooed by the people on the right, but
But how many
when they
times
do
do
it,
people say they feel great when, you know, they've gone for a walk down a trail? Well, yeah, you feel great, not just because of the walk, but there's an energy in nature that you are absorbing when you are putting yourself out there with nature. And so, you know, I think about it because my mom loves walking the beach, because my parents go to Mexico for 6 weeks a year usually, and that's my mom's favorite thing to do. She's like, I always feel so healthy when I'm in Mexico. I'm like, because you are benefiting from that energy, the energy of the ocean, the energy coming up through the sand. You're walking barefoot and you do it for an hour a day. Yeah, you're going to feel great, not just because of the walking, but the energy that your body is using and co mingling with the energy you're given from the earth. So when you think of these plant-based medicines, there's connection that's happening between us and the earth, which I feel is kind of how it should be.
absolutely, absolutely. And then, you know, under the influence of the medicine, there's connection from all of that to other realms, to your higher self, to
Yeah,
other higher selves. You know, people report feeling love, you know, feeling the collective consciousness, you know, that we are all one. And
yeah,
I'm not talking about ibogaine here specifically, because that's mostly used for detox, and that's done, you know, in a medical setting and everything. But the other medicines we do outside, if weather permitting, which it usually is. We build a fire. You know, the fire is very healing, and it's an important part of all ancient ceremonies, where
it takes away the negative, but allows room for the positive to come back in. And this is, of course, all part of the ceremony, with the medicine, that the intention is for that, but the fire is a really important part of it. So for people that are doing medicines such as ayahuasca, that needs to be done with a facilitator, and please check the facilitator. I'm sorry, I need to drink some water. Please check out the facilitator and ask for references, people who have been in their ceremonies. You want to know what the space is going to look like. You want to know if one person ends up being loud and disruptive, what's going to happen? Are they just going to leave that person alone? Or are they going to take them to a secure space so other people aren't disturbed? How is that handled? Psilocybin is fine to do alone, but it's good to have someone with you the first couple of times that is not on it, or that has, done it before and knows what to expect. And the big thing about ibogaine that I've been talking about here for addiction, don't do this at home. Don't think, and unfortunately it's expensive because there's hard costs of running a center and having nurses there 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And doctors when necessary for the large doses. And, but it's as safe as a cup of coffee, but particularly if you're detoxing, it can be fatal. You need medical testing. You need to make sure that your heart is strong enough to take it, that your liver is strong enough to take it, that all the vital organs are working, or there can be negative consequences, including death. About 1 person a year dies of it. And, you compare that to a hospital, people die in the hospital every day, right? You expect that. And if some of the people listening to this decide to look up this medicine on your own, you're going to read a lot of scary stories, because the people writing the stories have never heard about it before. And they don't know that the people that die, it's usually one or two things. Number one, the medical testing wasn't done and there was an undetected medical problem. Okay. Number two, the person just came for what we call a flood and go. Yeah, at the other clinics that offer just a 3-day treatment, where you come, you get treated, and boom, you go back home. But then the person is completely detoxified. All of the drugs are out of their system, but then they go to use because mentally they weren't ready to give it up, even though they probably don't have physical cravings at that point. They go and they use their quote unquote normal amount of whatever their substance is. And it would be like if you and I did it. Okay. It could potentially kill us. So again, the importance of having clients that really want to do the work. I tell the parents I talk to when I'm making sales calls, I want you to see tears in their eyes. I want them to be on their knees begging for this, because, this is an investment you're making in your child or your spouse or your partner or whoever. And they really need to be prepared to do the work beforehand and on the other end, because yes, this will help you a lot in terms of reduced cravings and everything, but you still have to do the personal work on your own. You still have to change your life completely. And it sounds crazy, but it's like you're giving up your most devoted companion. This is what this is what you've been doing for years or decades, or, depending on the person. Everybody has a different story. So kids, do not do this at home.
Yeah, people need to understand too that you can have the best intentions to want to help your loved one, but they have to want to help themselves. And if they don't, it will not work. Right? That's in any recovery.
Right. It just can't.
No. My brother did. He was in rehab 3 times with the good intentions of getting clean, but he always got sucked back in it. And part of it, I think, is he wasn't doing the supportive work that he needed to stay on that path. I mean, there are so many factors, I think, that go with that. But it's like you said, they have to want to do the work, because it is work. It's not a magic pill that's just going to make it go away. There's supportive.
No, but it sure seems like it. It sure seems like it. And I think that's where I went wrong the first time, is the fact that it took away the urge, boom, like that. I thought that would be it, and it wasn't. The
Right.
second time I was ready. I was ready. And I knew more about the medicine by then because I joined a bunch of Facebook groups and met a bunch of, made a bunch of Facebook friends, people that I talked to and everything, and talked to people that ran the aftercare places and really knew what needed to happen. So I just did the medicine without the aftercare. I did my own aftercare because I couldn't afford it. So if I could do it after 35 years, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hope for anyone, but there's not a pill for being ready. That just takes repeated stumbles and falls. And then one day, all of a sudden, when you're willing to do whatever it takes, then that's where the magic can happen. And in this case, this can really turbocharge the recovery and make it a whole lot easier.
Right. Absolutely. Well, this has been fabulous. And I think, this needs to get out there. People need to know the availability of it. So I'm glad we did this because people now know who they can reach out to if they have questions, if they think this is something for them or for a loved one, they've got you. And I think that's really powerful. And so the work you're doing, I think, is going to hugely impact the world. And having lost people and dealt with people in my family dealing with addiction nonstop, um, I totally see the benefit of what you're doing, and it excites me to know that healing is possible, that out there for people.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to be on here. I understand my business is quite different probably from anybody you've ever talked to before. I consider myself self-employed at this point, which is, I will work for this place. It's an ideal situation. Whenever I want to work here, I can come. They always want me, but they understand that my focus is on working with eating disordered people and finding them, talking them through it, answering questions. And then when there are clients that I do treat, I bring them here and I stay with them here, and I'm there holding their hand day in and day out.
That's amazing. It's amazing that they have that support and that you're doing that for them. You're walking them through the process.
Somebody had to do it, so I elected myself.
Yeah. Well, and who better? You've been through it yourself. You know what's happening, and you've also done a lot of the healing work outside of it. So you're able to help steer them in the right direction, which it's so powerful.
Right. It's about finding what works for them because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
truly is, but because we are all unique and we're all perfect. We were all born perfect. And then the world happened, then life happened. So it's how do we react to that, that charts the course, but we get to change the course of our life. And let me tell you, I was in the most despair of my entire life before I had my first treatment. I was in my car, in the garage with the motor running for the first time. I was 55 years old. Who is suicidal for the first time at 55? I mean, most people that struggle with that, it's like an on again, off again thing their whole lives, starting from adolescence usually. But
Yeah.
I was just so hard of trying so hard and not succeeding because I just couldn't. And that's partly why this worked so well for me, because I had tried everything and I really did want to get better. But there was just a switch, always being one bite away from a binge,
Right.
and that even on my worst days now, I still struggle with depression sometimes. I still, life still happens to me like it always did. But the thought of eating disorder, binging and purging is completely foreign to me now. Completely.
Amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that it was so successful for you because now you're on this mission to help other people through it. And that's just so powerful. I'm so honored to know you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Equally.
thank you so much for being part of this hot seat. Oh, there's my dog. He knows we're wrapping up. Yes, I do. Um, and again, I'll put it out there. Anybody watching this, whether it's live right now or in the replay, get the message out, let them know that Karen is out there doing this work, and that there are options that are different than what maybe conventional medicine might tell you. And yeah, reach out to Karen and let her know, because there's a whole lot of healing that needs to be happening in the world right now.
Absolutely. And it is happening. And that's the beautiful
Yeah.
part. It's
Yeah.
happening because we're making it happen.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you again. We'll talk soon.
Okay.